He's not feeling well. Good morning. Today is the 12th day of First Adar and the 21st of February. We're on page 130 of Machatzit HaShekel. We actually learned yesterday, even though it wasn't taped. So my apologies. We'll just quickly go over what we saw yesterday. We saw the parable of the dross in the silver and how you get it out. So when you heat up the silver, first of all, the dross appears. The impurities appear. They couldn't see them before. They appear. They begin to separate. And then we said that you have to put it into a leather pouch, and as it trickles down the leather pouch, the silver goes down and the dross stays on top. And that's how you separate it. And this is to answer the question of why is it that particularly when we come to Amida, to the Shmona Esrei, that's when we ask Hashem for forgiveness. Why shouldn't we do it at the beginning of the davening? Theoretically, that should be the order. First, I ask Hashem to forgive me for everything that I did wrong, and then I can daven and ask Him for things. So we started to do that. Slach lanu is, I think, the fifth bracha. It's somewhat at the beginning, but why not? Why do we wait all the way till Amida? We should have done it before. So the explanation is that once you're warmed up, like the silver, you've been heated up by the Sukkah de Zimra and by the Shema, and you're beginning to become... So you're beginning to become connected to yourself. You're beginning to see where you're really standing relative to God. So when you begin to see that, then you need to get the dross out. That's what the Slach Lanu does. That's what the Forgive Us does. It's really to get out of your system the negative things which now appeared because you've heated yourself up with the beginning of prayer. Okay? And now he says... Yeah, but you see it's very short. Still. Very short. Anyway. So now he says, V'omer slach lanu ki chatanu. And now he says, please forgive us, Hashem. Again, how is this all related to Machatzit HaShekel? Because we're saying that when you begin to awaken from the kindness, from the 5 aspects of kindness, whose bottom two-thirds go to the female, and that's us, and we begin to awaken during davening, that's our Maim Nukvin, that's our feminine waters, then we have this encounter with ourselves, and we say we have to get rid of all our iniquities.
Tell me there's a connection between Machatzit HaShekel and Tshuva. Machatzit HaShekel is a form of...
Of course, because it says lekapara. It says it's for. It originally was for the golden calf. That was what they used it for originally. But it's for kapara atonement in general. It's not just for the Machatzit HaShekel. And what do we take from it? We take from it the communal sacrifices, the morning and evening, or ben arbaim, that are completely for atonement. It says that the morning daily sacrifice atones for all the sins performed at night, and the one that's in the late afternoon is for all the sins performed during the day. So they're all related to atonement. So Machatzit HaShekel is very related to that.
So does not mean you can sin during the night and then know that they're going to bring a korban and everything's forgiven? Isn't that like sin and I'll rely on tshuva?
So don't do it.
No.
People are human, so once they've sinned, they need some way to atone. They have to have some way to get out of it. Even then, it doesn't say that if a person says "Achtav Hashuv," it doesn't say that his tshuva is not accepted. It says that En maspikin be'ado lasot tshuva, that he finds it hard to find the state of mind, the time, the what's necessary in order to do tshuva. But it's not because the tshuva won't be accepted. Because when you think about it, when someone says that he's relying on it, then in what kind of state of mind is he when he sins? He's in the state of mind that sin is the natural thing, and tshuva is like some kind of, so it becomes very hard for him to do tshuva. In any case, so let's go on. Because when a person is in this state, that he's standing before God, and now after he said all the Psukei de Zimra, all the chapters of Psalms, and he said Krishma and its blessing, so now he's like standing before Hashem, and it says that before Hashem, even chuta se'ara nidme kehar, legabei amitit ba'al ha'emet, relative to God's verity, to His absolute truth. Even a small discrepancy, even something small, which would be like a hair's breadth, becomes like a giant mountain. And there's another example of this. כמשל מי שעומד לפני המלך, שגם תנועה קלה בפריקת עול האימה, כמרד יחשב. That somebody who's standing in front of a king, that even if he motions to someone who's passing by, he has some business with him, but he's standing in front of the king and he's motioning him to do something, that is considered to be rebelling against the king. וגם כל הגיעותיו לא יזכו בעיני המלך, או לא יזכו בעיני המלך, לפי שלגבי התנסות המלך אין לך דבר שיספיק. And another thing is that we say, before you, Hashem, what do we have? Im tzadakta ma titen lo. Even if you've done great things, you can't compare it to what God has done. So don't try to get into some kind of competition with Hashem. Did I bring you enough this time? Right? That whole frame of mind is very problematic, and most people live that way. Most people live in the way that they think that they're gaining points to be justified before God. This is really, anything you bring is still nothing, because before the king, everything, even the good things are nothing. So you have this interesting reality where before God, it's as if all the good that I do is really inconsequential, but the negative suddenly is magnified 100 times. It becomes huge. And there's an example of this, another example of this. By the way, so what's the solution? We've talked about it before. The only thing that could justify me before God is the fact that He wants me alive. That's all. It's His will. It has nothing to do with whether I perform what I'm supposed to perform or not. To come to God with a list of all the good things I did is not a very good strategy. The right strategy is that I completely am lowly before Him, and I realize that the reason that I have what I have is because that's what He wants. Okay? Again, this is the psychological reason. In terms of doing, I'm still obligated to do. I mean, I can't come and say, well, I don't need to do anything. God will just keep me anyway. Because maybe there is some kind of connection, but I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly what God is keeping me around for. I have no clue. But I know that He's at least keeping me around to do the obligations that I'm obligated to do from the Torah. In any case, getting back to here, and there's a Gemara in Gittin that says, "V'zeu shamu gabei dukin sheba'ain." Dukin is a type of blemish in the eye of an animal, and it's like I think they call it in English a shablul. I think it's anyway. It causes the animal to not be able to see well. It's like something's blocking part of the field of vision.
Cataract?
Maybe it's cataract. I don't know if they get cataracts. So when you bring an animal as a sacrifice, it can't have dukin. It can't have this type of blemish. But the Gemara says, "Deledidan have muma." For us, this is a blemish. Meaning, for Jews, this is considered to be a blemish. You can't bring an animal that has this type of problem in its eye. Veledidhu lo have muma. But for them, a non-Jew wants to bring a sacrifice. This is not a blemish. It's fine. He can bring this type of animal as a sacrifice. Why the difference? Pirush dukin sheba'ain hu hastara shebechokhmah. So when you think about it, what does this symbolize? The inability to see things is that a person's wisdom is not clear. So there's many things that he can't see. We spoke before about what wisdom means. Wisdom means being able to see that the world is being created at every moment by God. In other words, being sustained. It's like it's being brought out of nothingness at every single moment. But if you have some blemish on your eye, this is the spiritual eye, the eye in the heart, so you can't tell, you can't see this properly. וההשגה האלוקית מצד חומר מחשך הגוף והסתרה זו שלא נתפס בלב, סובב ומלא, הוא תכלית דקות של הרע משבירת רפ"ח. And here there's a big difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. That a Jew who doesn't see this is blemished. There's a problem with him. Again, it's not the halacha. The halacha is just that it's forbidden for a Jew to bring an animal like this, and for a non-Jew it's permissible. The question is why. So to answer why, he's going off into an interpretation of this. That the blemish in the eye is like not being able to see fully. Is it the wisdom? The eyes are always wisdom. So what can I not see? So I don't see fully this idea that God is sustaining the world all the time. So a non-Jew, if he doesn't believe this, it's not a terrible thing. It's not so bad. Why? Because to begin with, as we'll see, it's not clear that he can even see it. So if his field of vision is clouded here, and not clear, whatever it doesn't make such a big difference. But a Jew who comes from a different source, and there for him it's essential to be able to see this, then he can't bring such a korban. He can't bring such an animal as a sacrifice. I'll give another example. What if you're a jeweler, okay, and you have to work with small, tiny things, and your eyesight is not as great as it used to be. So at some point you have to say, I can't be a jeweler anymore. A regular person, who cares? He can continue to write on the computer. He can do whatever he needs, because he doesn't have that need to see things that are at that resolution. Okay? So it all depends on the person. It all depends on what their source is and what their job is, let's say.
So there's a famous story of some non-Jew who wanted to bring a korban to the Beis Hamikdash, and he examined his eyes, and there was a pasur, and he wouldn't take the korban.
And because of that,
they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. So they did reject it.
it's a different. It was limping. It was something entirely different. When a leg is broken in an animal, it can't survive. So we call it a treifa. It's like an animal that won't survive. In animals, it's 12 months. In chickens, I believe it's 24 hours, or it's different in each one. What? It has to be able to, but there's also a time limit on it. So I believe in an animal, I think it's 12 months, but I'm not sure. In any case, that was a different, and that's Zachariah ben Avkulis. The Gemara says that Anvetanuto shel Zachariah ben Avkulis tichriva et bet Elokeinu, because he should have taken it anyway, and then figured out something, swapped it or whatever. But that's why from that we learn a lot of halachos regarding taking tzedakah from a non-Jew. Should we or shouldn't we? So it depends on how much he's adamant about giving the tzedakah. If he's really adamant, then you have to find something that you know will not present a problem in the future. Because if he comes by and he sees that whatever he supposedly paid for is gone, he'll be very upset. A Jew will just say, "What can I do? I know that this is, things break, things this and that." With a non-Jew, you have to figure out something so that he doesn't feel that you've jilted him in some way. Again, because it's not where he's regularly attending. He doesn't know exactly what the order of things is. In any case, he says now, what is this? What is this hastara? What are you not seeing? That I can't see these two types of light or revelation of God. The integrated light and the surrounding light, the transcendent light, I can't see them. And where does this come from? As I said, in general, what this means is the person can't see that God is sustaining the world, whether it's immanent or transcendent, doesn't matter. You can't see fully. This all comes, this type of blemish that the person can't see is from the shattering of the 288 vessels in the world of chaos. It's called the world of eyes. Okay? It's from Orot Ha'inayim, it says. It's from the light of the eyes of Adam Kanmon, the primordial man that came out of his eyes. And then it shattered. So 288 vessels were shattered there. שבשעת חטא אדם ראשון שנתגשמו כל הברואים. That this, and the equivalent of this is that Adam's sin. And Adam's sin is the equivalent of what the Arizal calls the shattering of the vessel. It's a whole question whether it's the same thing or not. Is he talking about the story in Genesis? Is he talking about something else? What is he talking about? So normally we say that eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the aftermath of that is like the shattering of the vessels in the world of chaos. And here he calls it that the result was, after Adam's sin, that everybody became very corporeal. They were more spiritual before, and now they fell down to a lower level, and now their main existence was their physical existence, not their spiritual existence. As the Zohar says, he calls this that the face was darkened. So he says, when it comes to them who went through this process, they went through this process. Everybody went through this process, but non-Jews went only through this process of Adam eating from the tree of knowledge, and then everything becoming much more physical, much more material, and an inability to see the spiritual because you're so physical. But for the Israelites, the Jewish people, but because the souls of the Jewish people are before Adam. Okay? This is also a difficult thing to understand. What do you mean? What do you mean they're before Adam? What was there before Adam? But before the entire creation, there were souls of the Jewish people. That's how the Tana Dev Eliyahu Rabbah explains it. Who did he consult with before he created the world? Whether to create the world or not to. He consulted with the souls of the righteous. And your people are all righteous. So how do we explain this? We say that the Jewish people want the world. That the Jewish souls, the difference between a Jewish soul and a non-Jewish soul, is a Jewish soul is committed to this world. Why? Because when God asked us, should I create the world or not? Everybody didn't know what to answer. Nobody knew what to answer. The angels didn't know what to answer. Nobody knew what to answer. And finally, he asked the souls of the righteous, the souls of the Jewish people, and he asked them, so should I create the world or not? They said, of course you should. He says, why? Because you really want to. You're asking us just to help you express. He says, okay, if you understand that, then you should be the ones who are committed to making sure that the world reaches the goal that I want it to be, the way I want it to be. And that's why the Jewish people are so, on the one hand, always present, and the other hand, always hated. No, we have to end. Why we hate it? Because we represent the goal. And the goal is goodness, and the goal is connecting to God. And everybody has a say about that. Everybody says it needs to be this way or that way, or this and that. And thankfully, most of the people today in the world, they do want God, but they want a God that is a figment of their imagination. They're not willing to look at God the way that the Torah describes God. So in any case, a Jew has something more. For him, this is a blemish. Because he's not only after this, and we also went through, our souls also went through with Adam, this eating from the tree of knowledge. We suffer from it just as much. But we also have a higher place. And because of that higher place, for us to suffer from not seeing creation is a real problem. Because for us not to see creation is like to say that we weren't there to consult with God before creation. It's almost like we're looking at creation from above even, not from below. And that is the problem, because then you can't be dedicated to the goal. You lose sight of what the whole purpose of the world is. when you ask people what is the purpose of the world, you'll get some answers, but none of them are very complex. None of them are very well thought out. But the way that the Torah presents it is a completely different picture. Okay, we'll end here.